Good evening and welcome to another episode of Rich Politics, a non-politically correct weekly broadcast brought to you from my home here in Wales, just a Welshman ranting about all things politics. And my guest today is someone who's been on the show before, in fact, back in December. But before I introduce our guest tonight, you may have noticed there's a lot going on, and it's not just COVID. Of course, we've got elections coming up all across the country. And of course, we have them here in Wales. And of course, not just Wales, but Scotland, London, Manchester. We have council elections, police and crime commissioner elections, Senate elections in Wales, and we have mayoral elections. And you might have seen a lot of stuff going on in London with Sadiq Khan and Lawrence Fox and some of my friends down there campaigning to win that seat. But my friend tonight, someone who I've got to know, who I admire very much, he's done an amazing amount of work in his community there in Manchester. Now, we're not going to talk about football tonight. We might do at the end. But suffice to say that Manchester is one of those cities that is admired by so many of us, myself included, not just because of its great shopping centres, because I just love the accent. And of course, the mayoral elections are very, very important. And my guest tonight has worked very hard, relentlessly over the years to work with the most broken in society, the most vulnerable, from the homeless to drug addicts. And it goes without saying, well-deserved, he received an MBE for his outstanding work in the community. And now, ladies and gentlemen, he is entering the world of politics. And I'm so glad he is, because I think he'd make a fantastic mayor. And he joins me now, Nick Buckley. Nick, welcome to Rich Politics.
Thank you very much for the amazing introduction.
well, it's true. I'm only saying what I believe and what I think. You know, I've got to admire what you've done throughout your life. You know, you've turned your life around from the streets, as it were, like many people. So you understand, what it means to struggle. You've been through those things. And I think we need more people like you in politics. But Nick, I want to ask you, what's been happening? Because since we spoke in December, a lot has changed. Tell us what has changed, Nick. What's happening with you right now?
So from the end of last year, I decided that the work I was doing with the charity I founded it's still going ahead, still doing excellent, but I decided it wasn't enough anymore. I decided helping individuals on an individual basis wasn't good enough, because no sooner can we fix broken people and help them move on with their lives. More people are being broken as we speak. And the only way we're going to stop this and stop the conveyor belt of people failing in life and people being broken by the system is for someone to get into that system and start making some changes, but changes based on decades of experience and knowledge, instead of basing changes on what's popular at the moment and what's going to look good on Twitter. Because I'll be honest, I don't care about Twitter. I don't care if people like me or dislike me or like my policies or not. All I can guarantee is I'll be doing everything for the right reasons, trying to get the right results. Everything else is immaterial.
Yeah, it is. I think you're like a lot of us, we all kind of are in that echo chamber of Twitter. I think the journals, the media, the political types, and, we all have our little spats in there. And I just find it down here in Wales, for example, we get the Welsh nationalists, kicking off and getting triggered and all kinds of weird things. And it's not the real world, Nick, is it? It's not the world when you walk out of your front door and you walk the streets of Manchester. It's very different from Twitter, isn't it?
Yeah, I think only something like 4% of the population's on Twitter. 4%. And the vast majority of people on Twitter are decent. And there's only a handful of nutcases. But yet everyone seems to pander to the small percentage of nutcases. And the people I meet on the street never talk about the issues that are being discussed on Twitter. No one has ever stopped me on the street and said, Nick, what do you think about my use of pronouns?
Yeah.
What do you think about, what Brexit's going to do to the European vaccination scheme? Yeah. No one talks about these things to me. What people say to me is, I can't get a house. I've got money for a deposit. I just cannot rent a house anywhere in Manchester because it's too expensive. Or how do I pick up my children from school and hold down a job and have to use public transport to get to all these places? How do I do that, Nick, to have a life?
Yeah, I Nick, you are right. And I think, speaking of Manchester, you've been a passionate Mancunian, if that's the right phraseology to use, throughout your career and your life. And I think this step for you into politics is new. Why have you decided now to stand in the mayoral elections this May in Manchester? What inspired you to do it? What was your motivation?
The breaking point was Greater Manchester Police. that was the breaking point. In December, just gone, the government's Inspectorate Constabulary put Greater Manchester Police into special measures because the force is failing. It failed to record and investigate 85,000 crimes last year. That's 85,000 victims that we just basically ignored. And some victims we ignore because we haven't got the resources, but at least that's a calculated choice. But to lose 85,000 crimes and not record them was the final straw for me. I've got many police friends because I used to work with the police. I used to be based in police stations in my old job. And the amount of them who've contacted me going, Nick, I'm embarrassed at the place where I work. And they're trying their hardest every day. And they're putting their lives on the line every day. But yet we've got the senior echelons of the police letting everybody down. And who's the top of that is the mayor of Greater Manchester. He basically runs and he's in charge of the police. And when I saw what happened, I thought, I've had enough. I've had enough of people living in squalor on the streets, and we can't get them off the streets. And now we're going to turn the city into a no-go zone because the police are failing. And I'm always a big believer that it's easy to moan. We all can point at people and moan, and I would do better than them, and I wouldn't have done that. And it's easy to be a critic. It's hard to make change. It's hard to put yourself forward. And I say to people all the time, if you want to make change, you've got to be on the pitch to influence the game. And if you're not stood on the pitch, you're a spectator. And I don't want to be a spectator anymore.
Well, you're certainly on the pitch. That the whistle's about to go. The race has begun, really. And I'm not familiar with the elections there for mayor in Manchester. I mean, who are the other players, Nick? I mean, obviously there's different parties, putting their pitch together. What's the kind of history there? Tell the viewers a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think we've got 6 people running at the moment.
Right.
We've got the Labour candidate, who's the incumbent mayor at the moment, Andy Burnham. He won on 65% of the vote last time, so he's going to be really difficult to beat. Yeah. The only way he's going to be beaten is if Labour voters go, I've had enough of this. We've then got Conservative candidate. The Tories last time got 22% of the vote, and that was a high-profile Tory last time. That was a leader of Trafford Council. Yeah. So the Tories haven't got a chance. We've got the Lib Dems running again. They got 6% of the vote last time, so they're not in the race. I believe we have a Green Party representative not in the race. And we've got an independent running who's an ex-copper and is running for the same reasons I'm running. So he needs to be listened to. If you want to understand how the police are failing, you need to check out him and find out.
Yeah, so clearly, I mean, this is an open race. I mean, we know Andy Burnham, obviously his record, and we see a lot of him through mainstream media. But do you think it's time for Manchester, that Manchester really needs a change? Is that part of it? Of course, the police failings you mentioned there, but also some of the social, domestic issues in Manchester that you've witnessed. Is that what it's about? That things need to change that haven't happened under Andy Burnham?
Absolutely. And I think the main thing we need to change, the main thing people need to realise is if you keep voting for the same politicians, you're going to get the same outcome. And we keep voting Labour in, nearly all the local borough councils. We keep voting Labour in for the mayor. And then we all sit back and complain that nothing changes. Well, the answer is stop voting for the same politicians with the same policies. And, we need to take responsibility for this. Voters need to take responsibility and not just point the finger when things don't go their way. Do something about it. Vote differently. And I'm saying to people, if your life is wonderful, if your life is good in Greater Manchester, then you need to vote for Andy Burnham and the Labour mayor. But if your life isn't great, and if you can't see a decent future for yourself or your kids, what have you got to lose? Vote. You don't have to vote for me, but vote for someone else. Vote differently and see if your life can be improved.
Do you know what, Nick? It's so refreshing to hear your honesty and your humility and transparency, because very rarely do you get anybody, because you're not a politician, right? So, no. Which is the best people to be in politics, in my opinion. That's why I got involved with it myself, because what you've just said there is so important. It's like, well, if I'm not the man, then don't vote for me. Vote for the best candidate that will give Manchester what it needs. And I think that's very honourable of you. But as your pitch, if you were the mayor of London, if you were fortunate enough to be trusted by the electorate and you were voted in as the next mayor of Manchester, what would be your key priorities?
Key priorities where we stand at the moment would be rough sleeping. I will end rough sleeping in Greater Manchester in the first year. That's a very bold statement. And I want people to hold me accountable for that. 1 year. If we cannot get people off the streets in 1 year, then I don't deserve to stay in a job as mayor. I need to be kicked out. So that's my first promise. The next thing we need to do is look at the police. We can't have our police force falling apart.
Yeah.
And some of the changes I want to initiate is we need to go back to basics. We need to stop policing the internet and stop policing tweets. We need to police the streets. We need safer streets. I want people walking home from work feeling safe. I want kids to be able to go out and play without their parents worrying they're going to be stabbed. I want to tackle knife crime. I'm going to look at every single neighbourhood in Greater Manchester and I'm going to offer each neighbourhood a vote. Do you want more stop and search in your area to protect your kids? And whatever they vote, they will get. If they don't want more stop and search, fantastic. It's called democracy and we'll respect that. But if parents and people who live in those communities want more stop and search to make their neighbourhood safer, they'll get it. And the people who live in those neighbourhoods will have to say, we won't have these trendy, pink and fluffy middle class people who live in Cheshire stating, oh, inner city Manchester, let's not stop and search and persecute the young people. You don't live here, mate, so you don't have a say here. Let's have the people who live on those streets tell the police what they want, because the police are public servants and the police need to do what the public want them to do. So there's some of the things. Now look at business as well. Especially after COVID, you know, that needs to be everyone's in the top 3 priority. How are we going to get businesses back up and running when everything gets back to normal, or before things get back to normal? Let's not wait. And what I want to do, and what I'm a big believer in, is we need to remove government from business. I want businesses to run the businesses the way they want to run them, within certain parameters, you know, legal limits, not polluting, not putting their staff in danger. That all goes without saying. But let's remove the red tape. Let's remove the bureaucracy. Let's businesses be more inventive, create more jobs, create better paying jobs. And let's remove the form filling, the box ticking, the reporting about gender pay gap rubbish. Let's remove all that stuff and say to businesses, Greater Manchester is where you want to come if you want to thrive as a business. We expect you to pay your taxes. We expect you to treat your workers decently and create great jobs. But apart from that, do what you do best and create wealth.
Well, if I live in Manchester, you got my vote. That's a great pitch, Nick. Seriously, I mean, it's common sense, isn't it? And that's the thing about a lot of people like yourself that I speak to who have not come from a political background, but we've been through the mill in life and we've had to fight our way through and we've turned our lives around. And I talk to people like that who then in turn want to help other people. And you exemplify that, who then go into politics with the right reasons and the right motives. It's not about the pay you're going to get or about the power you're going to get. It's about the fact that you can influence and legislate and change things in your community. And I think that's important in every election, that we have people like yourself stand in these elections. One question I want to ask you, Nick, is why the Reform Party? Why didn't you stand as an independent?
I looked at several parties and several ways of standing. And I've stood once before in 2018 as an independent for a local council seat in the city centre of Manchester. And I got nowhere. I got no press attention. I had, you know, the bit of money I had savings, I spent that on the campaign. And I realised without a party machine behind you, you really don't stand a chance. So when I decided I was going to stand again, it was like, right, what party? It couldn't be Labour. It really could not be Labour for me. I looked at the Conservatives and they haven't got a chance in Manchester. And I'm looking at some of their policies and their lockdown policies. And I'm thinking, no, you're not for me at this moment in time. The Lib Dems are probably worse than Labour with some of their pink and fluffy policies. They're not for me. And then I looked at Reform. And what I liked about Reform was the title. It's about reforming government and reforming about how we're governed. And the fact it's a brand new party also means that I can influence it. I'm not coming in with, this is what we believe. These are our set manifesto goals. I'm coming into a party that's saying, let's see where this goes. Let's see where this leads, because I wouldn't join something that had rules and regulations and manifesto I did not believe in, because that would just break my heart. That'd make me just like a career politician.
Yeah. So tell me, so since you've announced your standing, what's it been like for you? Has it been any different? You know, have you noticed a difference since you've announced that you're standing, or is it pretty much the same?
I announced and I took a step back, waiting for the fury or the backlash or the press attention, and I got nothing. And it was just deafening silence. And it's been a couple of weeks now, and I'm banging on social media hours every day, talking about policies, engaging with people. I'm speaking to the press. I'm trying to get on, fantastic podcasts like yours, what people listen and want a different point of view.
Yeah.
And things are beginning to get some traction now. So I've got half a dozen interviews set up. The BBC spoke to me the other day about what they're hoping to do in the next couple of weeks on coverage. I'm on some other podcasts. So things are beginning to happen now, which is great. And once that happens, people will realise. People now don't even know there's an election coming up in 6 weeks' time.
I know. So, it's been overshadowed, isn't it? Now, on that, actually, on the social media thing and on your campaign, if people want to connect with you, especially those of you watching in the Manchester area and the region around there, how do they connect with you, Nick? How can they engage with you? Is there a website? Is there something they can go on to speak to you?
I'm on nearly all social media platforms.
Yeah.
All with the same handle. All Nick Buckley MBE.
And
so Twitter, Facebook, everything. I'm on everything.
And to our viewers watching, that is going to be in the credits. So you're going to see all Nick's stuff there, so you can connect with him, especially if you're in the Manchester area. Because, of course, this man's going to be pitching for your votes, and you've heard some of the passion on what he's about. And I'm sure that you should be voting. It's very important that you do. Nick, one last question before we go, and our time is almost up. I love having you on, because I just, anybody that's done what you've done, and I know you sometimes you might find it, oh, Rich, don't say I'm not that great. Well, you are, right? I'm going to tell you are, because knowing what you've established through your community work, your social activism, I do admire you, and I will big you up. I don't care. I might not be a fan of Reform UK. I might not be a fan of, but I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of Nick Buckley. How does that sound? Well, even the Queen is, because you got an MBE, but that's another story. So, Nick, the campaign has started now. How are you finding it? Because obviously, I don't know if you're allowed to canvass there in Manchester, because certainly here in Wales, we're not allowed to canvass. We can deliver leaflets. We can't knock doors. We can't talk to people because of this COVID stuff. What's it like in Manchester? Obviously, we'll come to my last question in a few moments, but I want to ask you that, actually. What's happening in Manchester with canvassing?
It's the same. So we can leaflet if we want to, can't knock on doors. And I'm hoping that'll be a plus in my favour, because we haven't got the on-the-ground network of support that Labour and the Tories have got. So hopefully it will level that playing field. This battle is going to be on two fronts: social media and mainstream press. Yeah. So,
right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity now to speak to mainstream media, because obviously we'll put this out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all the usual social media platforms. You know the drill. So speak to the audience. Why should people vote for Nick Buckley?
People should vote. End of story. You need to vote. If you're going to vote for me, then you need to realise what you're going to get. If you're going to vote for me, you're going to get someone who's not a career politician. What I would like to be in time is a statesperson, somebody who puts you first, who makes choices and makes decisions because it's good for the country, good for the city region, and good for residents, instead of doing what's good for me and good for my political career and feathering my own nest. I'm not about that. I'm about tackling serious issues and finding solutions. We've seemed to have lost the ability now to fix problems, because we look at Twitter, we look at Facebook groups, we look at polls and we go, oh, that's not popular, I'm not going to do that. I don't care if it's popular or not. I'm going to do the right thing for the right reasons. And that turns out to be wrong. Then you need to vote me out at the next election. And that's called democracy. You will get honesty and the right decisions off me. If they turn out to be correct, that's down to your judgment.
Well, you can't get clearer than that. Nick Buckley, MBE, thank you so much for coming on again to Rich Politics. And I do wish you every success and goodwill in your campaign to be elected as the next mayor of Manchester. Wouldn't that be something? Not a career politician elected. That would be an incredible story. Nick, but before we go, I have to ask the question. This might decide how the votes swing, actually. Are you red or are you blue?
Now, a career politician would say, I'm both. I love Manchester City. I love Manchester United. I love all the Manchester football teams. That's a career politician's answer. My answer is I'm a red. Always have been. And the reason why I'm a red is because my granddad was a blue. And when I was 6 years old, I picked red just to annoy my granddad.
But there you are, it, folks. Nick Buckley, thank you so much for coming on Rich Politics. Folks, don't forget to share the broadcast on social media as far as you can. And don't forget to follow Nick Buckley on all the social platforms. You know, Nick Buckley, I'll put it in the description as well. And I'll catch you the same time here on Rich Politics next week. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.